we are very excited to be part of these sessions. And today is not, any less. We are bringing out someone who is basically always the only female in the room as the real estate industry struggles to find a gender balance. She's one of the young professionals at the South African Institute of Black Property Practitioners, that is SIBIP, and she's in the program called SIBIP Young Professionals. She's an asset manager at a leading, student accommodation provider in the country. She's young, she's vibrant, and she's interested in affecting change in the global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and real estate space. Her areas of interest include the accelerated growth in the startup space, sustainable real estate, and best business practice. She has a flair for entrepreneurship. Like she's an entrepreneur at heart. And as you can hear, we're speaking about a she, and we love that. We always want to have she people taking up space. And she's always trying her best to, join forces with other like-minded people to create meaningful work in the real estate space. And her name is Nthabiseng Makgabo, and she joins us for this year's season finale of the Rally Mampeule Learnership Program Masterclass. Thank you very much for joining us, Nthabiseng. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. That was such a wonderful interview.
Thank you very much. Today's topic, we are talking about women basically taking up space in the real estate space. I know this is an area of interest for you, and I know how excited you are to be taking, our viewers today through, the ins and outs in the property space and what you do in the property space and how other people can tap into the industry as well. Before we get into the actual business of the day, let me just give you a space to also, qualify the introduction that I've just, given to the listeners. Who is Nthabiseng?
So I speak about it a little bit more in the presentation, but as you said, my name is Nthabiseng Makgabo. I am an asset manager in the leading student accommodation provider in the country. I joined the company about almost 3 years ago. Time is flying. But before that, I was an analyst at one of the leading banks for property in the country, and I did deal origination for that company. Novio, it's not Eris, but it is the leading provider of student accommodation in the country. And before that, I was a graduate at the University of the Witwatersrand. I have a BSc in property studies, and I also hold a certificate in entrepreneurship from the Wits Business School. I've always been passionate about property, and one of the reasons is that I'm actually a village girl. I was born and raised and taken care of in a village about 2 hours away from Johannesburg called Makgabo. And one of the reasons why I got into property is because I spent years watching my grandmother build property and build our family home, and I didn't know that it doesn't take years for property to be built. It takes a lot shorter, but that was my reality, and it sparked my interest in the property industry. And a couple of years later, here I am. I'm still very passionate, still very eager to change.
Absolutely. Let's go through the presentation. So in this moment, we're going to allow Nthabiseng to take us through a presentation that she has prepared for the viewers today. Please do take us through, Nthabiseng.
Thank you very much. So first and foremost, before I launch into my presentation, I want to say thank you to the Mampeule Foundation for really choosing me amongst all of the people in the country that are currently doing amazing work in property. Thank you for really giving me the opportunity to speak about this topic, which is very close to my heart. And thank you for just, considering the youth in all that you do. I've interacted with the organization multiple times before, and you are always at the forefront of ensuring that youth and young people are participating meaningfully in the property industry, which is something else that I'm very passionate about as the chairperson of the SIBIP Young Professionals. So kudos to you. Please do continue to do the work that you do. You are transforming the industry one life at a time. And so my name is Nthabiseng Makgabo, and today I'll be walking you through making waves in the property industry. Later on in my presentation, I'm going to be speaking about kind of taking up space. But I figured if I'm going to speak about taking up space, I might as well acknowledge and take up space myself. So I'm going to start off by walking you through who I am and what I do in the industry, and then chat a little bit more about some of my favorite property professionals in the industry, as well as where I think the industry should consider going. If you're a young person and you're interested in entering to the space, even if you're older and you're interested in starting to participate more meaningfully in the space, I've got some ideas around what I think you should be considering in the property space. So like I said, I started university in 2013 and I hold a Bachelor of Sciences in Property Studies from the University of the Witwatersrand. None of that would have been possible had I not been funded by foundations such as the Mampeule Foundation. I was founded by the Cyber Bursary Fund. I was one of two of the first recipients of the fund's bursary scheme, and that essentially paid for my fees. Like many South Africans in this day and age, I would not have been able to afford to go to university had I not gotten funding. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about advocating for youth participating in the property industry and ensuring that we get more people that fund these bursaries is because I am a product of not being able to go to school had somebody else not been able to assist me. So I went to university and I graduated from the university. I then went and did my first job. I started off as a graduate at Nedbank Property Finance, which at the time, and I don't know if it is, probably still is, the leading provider of finance in the country. At the time, it had a share of about 35% of the whole of commercial property finance, which is huge, given that there are actually a lot of banks, a lot more than just the big four that you know of. And I was, very fortunate to get into that space, and I worked really hard, and I became an analyst. And I thoroughly enjoyed the 2.5 years that I was working as a banker there. What I did was I helped originate loans for people that wanted to invest in property, and it's larger scale loans, so from about 30 million rands and upwards. And thereafter, I joined the company that I work for right now, where I joined as a junior asset manager. Before that, though, I decided that it was important for me to give back to the organization that really ensured that I was able to participate in the property industry in the first place. And I became the head of students at Cyber, which basically had 4 university student chapters that we ran and helped them do different types of activities. And then in 2020, we launched the Cyber Young Professionals, which is another organization that's very close to my heart, because what we do is we speak to advocating for young professionals to participate in the property industry, whether they are entrepreneurs or whether they are corporate individuals such as myself. Because I realized that not everybody is going to be an entrepreneur, and we needed to create space for all of those people to be able to participate meaningfully. So that's who I am. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what I do. So there are lots of definitions of who an asset manager is and what an asset manager does. But one of the definitions is that it's somebody or a profession that makes decisions around growing returns on an underlying asset while managing risk for a fund or stakeholders. Basically, you're just trying to ensure that you manage risk and you get good returns for a property. And I try, and in my mind, I conceptualize it as being able to see the full picture of property, the full spectrum of property, from acquiring an asset to managing an asset to ensuring that you dispose of it when the time comes. That's essentially what I believe asset management is. And before I carry on, actually, I saw that one of my lecturers from WITS is in the room. Hi, ma'am. Hi, Priska. She was one of my lecturers, and hopefully she'll be one of my lecturers again. But WITS is actually what got me into going into property finance and asset management in the first place. In my 3rd year at university, my professor invited an asset manager. She was an asset manager for Liberty student, Liberty is not a student accommodation company. Liberty 2 Degrees, yes, there we go. She was an asset manager for Liberty 2 Degrees, and she sparked my interest when it comes to asset management. At that point in time, in my third year, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But the moment I met her, I knew that this was exactly what I wanted to do. And I essentially followed her footsteps when it comes to how I got to the position that I'm in currently. So shout out to Bids. My life at work varies, right? I don't do the same thing every day, but one thing I try and make sure that I do more than anything is learn. I do a lot of learning. I ensure that, you know, I put on my learning cap, and I put on the confidence that I know certain things, but I'm always willing to be taught. Even if it's something that I know already, if somebody can teach me how to do it better or differently, I'm always willing to learn that as well. There are lots of other things that I do outside of the bullet points that I have listed. However, these are the key things that I think are important for this conversation. So a lot of what I do is market analysis and pricing. It's understanding the student accommodation landscape and understanding who is pricing what, when, and why. I do a lot of corporate finance, which is really reporting. So understanding how the assets in my portfolio are performing relative to the financial landscape and relative to the operational landscape. I do debt origination, which is always fun because I get to put on my banker hat. And when I do debt origination, I also do a lot of viewing of legal agreements and negotiation with the banks, just to make sure that they give us the right type of debt for the right amount of time at the right cost to the company, that we don't erode any of our value. I do investment management, which is financial and property due diligence, and that's something I've been doing quite a lot recently. I'm very excited about that because it's definitely something I wanted to make sure I knew outside of what I had learned in university. I wanted to practically experience it, and I'm grateful for the opportunity from my company to have learned that currently. And then a little bit of portfolio management. So I do leasing for our commercial sector, and I do capital expenditure management, which is essentially spending more money to enhance the value of your property. So I don't do all of these things at the same time. Sometimes I do, but these are just some of the things that I do on a regular basis at work. Now, I find that I am actually living out my purpose, right? Which is to add value in the lives of ordinary South Africans. And I'm really grateful that I get to do that on a regular basis. Like I said earlier on when I was chatting to Linda Wushe, my interest in property was sparked by the fact that I saw my grandmother spending, you know, almost 7 years building our family home while we lived in a smaller 2-roomed house, you know. And when I say 2-roomed house, I literally mean it was a bedroom and a kitchen. And that's where we lived because it's a village. We didn't have running water, we didn't have, you know, toilets, but that's where we were positioned, obviously because of prehistoric spatial planning and the apartheid era and how it, you know, segregated people. That's where we lived. And it was like years before I saw a tarred road at home. I think I was already in grade 2 already when we had a tarred road. So one of the reasons why I'm in the property industry is that I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about the way property affects the lives of ordinary South Africans like myself. I'm passionate about ensuring that I am part of the solution that creates better housing solutions and better employment solutions for people. Because the further away you live, the harder it is for you to, you know, in essence, find a job. I spent the first couple of years of my life with my mother leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning so that she would be able to make it to Pretoria to work, and she would come back at 10 when I was already asleep. And that was because we lived so far away. It's only an hour and a half now, but because we had no infrastructure, it was really far. So I'm passionate about ensuring that more people are able to live better lives through property. It is my vocation, it is my profession, it is my passion, and it most definitely is my mission. It's also my mission to ensure that I help educate people about the other stuff that exists in the property industry, right? Because it's not just professionals that participate in the property industry. It's the everyday person that lives in a home. If you live somewhere and you work somewhere and you eat food, essentially you're participating in the real estate industry because Farming is real estate. Land is real estate. You know, your home is real estate. It's participating in the property industry. And one of the things I'm very excited about seeing is, you know, more women and more people in general, but particularly women taking up space in the property industry. That's Zozibini Twinzi, if you don't know who she is. And she's one of the people that have really coined and nationalized or the term taking up space. And I see a lot more people, particularly women, taking up space in the property industry. More and more reports are coming out of women being at the forefront of buying homes and being at the forefront of ensuring that they are participating in the property industry. And it's something that I love to see, because just because you're not a property professional in the direct sense, it does not mean that you cannot participate in property. I believe that property is the type of thing that gives you generational wealth if you know how to manage it, if you know how to invest correctly. And it's the type of thing that can really ensure that decades to come, you leave a legacy for your family, for your children, or even create wealth for yourself right now. Now, I would be amiss if I don't talk about some of my favorite women in the property industry right now. And I've picked 4. There are a lot more that I can highlight it, but I picked 4 because I feel like outside of myself, these are some of the women that I believe are making the biggest waves when it comes to the property industry. Now, I've had the pleasure of meeting these 2 women in particular, and they are at the forefront of one of the biggest waves in the property industry at the moment, which is PropTech. PropTech is defined as property technology. It's basically the use of technology in enhancing how real estate is used. Palesa Moloi is a Wits graduate. She's a qualified CA, and she was the co-founder of something called ParkUp. It's now changed to something called True. And what ParkUp essentially was in the beginning was a parking facilitation app. It helped people find parking and it helped them pay for their parking essentially. In places like Cape Town, where there is very limited parking in the CBD, for example, it was a perfect app because people would be able to pre-book their parking in particular spaces or in shopping centers, for example, get their parking, do their business and leave. One of the reasons why I'm highlighting her in particular is because of how COVID affected how everybody lived and worked. Her company had to innovate, and now it has been changed to something called True. Now, this is important because I think as South Africans, we tend to see missteps sometimes as failures. And I love to see that she was able to pivot from what existed and was not functioning as a typical entrepreneur to something else, something bigger, something better. Now they still do types of parking, but now they're helping people find spaces in different spaces, almost like an Airbnb, but for commercial property almost. So if you're looking for hotspotting, if you're looking for somewhere you can do workshops, if you're looking for parking still, her app and her business does that. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal because it's solving a problem that a lot of people already have if they want to hold events, or if they want to, hotspot and work outside of their homes or their offices. If you're an entrepreneur, it's something that makes it easily available for you to do. One of my other favorite people who work in PropTech, and maybe not PropTech necessarily, but definitely PropTech in the larger scheme of things, is Lebogang Shule. She is the executive head of national facilities and property at Vodacom. And I absolutely love this woman because her story about how she moved from being a QS to where she is right now in facilities management and property management is a testimony of how, as a person and a woman of color in general, you can maneuver and break all ceilings. I did a podcast with her recently that's going to be released very soon, and she discusses the importance of educating yourself to ensure that whatever room you're in, whatever space you want to go in, you already have the knowledge, so that when you put up your hand and you decide that, no, this is the direction that I want my career to go into, so that you're able to know that you're educated in that space. Even if you don't have the experience necessarily, if you've got a little bit of education, then you're able to kind of move in that direction. I sat on the board of the Cyber with her, and she was one of those people that I genuinely enjoyed learning from. So definitely look her up on LinkedIn, read up some articles about her, a phenomenal woman to know of and to learn from. So I think Vuyo was asking us about Eris earlier on, and I do actually feature Eris on this conversation, although not directly. Property accommodation or student accommodation is probably one of the biggest and most resilient assets that we have seen coming out of the last couple of years, and in particular 2020 and 2021. And one of the people that work there that I absolutely adore is Talisa Ramusi. She is the property manager or the development manager at Eris Property Group, and I actually went to university with her. And she's absolutely phenomenal, working very hard and very well in the white male dominated space and doing phenomenally in the space. One of the reasons why I believe that taking up space is not impossible. It's very doable. We've got examples of people that are doing it and are doing it well currently. Another person that I think is doing a fantastic job in the student accommodation space is the co-founder and CEO of Dix Connect, which is Alexandria Proctor. And Dix Connect is essentially almost like Airbnb for student accommodation. It's like Airbnb, it's like Property 24 for student accommodation. It partners landlords and students together and helps them, you know, meet the common goal of accommodating students who need to be accommodated. Now, there are a lot more people that I am really passionate about and excited about when it comes to the property industry, and I want to feature some of them. But before I do that, I want to talk about how, you know, currently, whether we like it or not, women don't necessarily have as much of a share in the seats in a boardroom as men do. It's a fact. And it's not just a property fact, it is a general business fact. So in the future, the hope is that there will be no female leaders, that there will be just leaders. And this is a quote from one of my favorite books, Lean In. I highly recommend that every woman who works in property or is running their own business reads this book, and even men. I think it's kind of like a rule book of how to not shut yourself out from doing well in property, but in any industry in general. But the reality is that currently we need more people or more women to take up space in industries. And I wanted to highlight some of my favorite women in the industry because I wanted to create space for representation. I'm one of those people that strongly believe in representation. And the woman at the bottom of the line was one of the first people that I met who worked in property, who was female, who was doing well. When I was interviewing for my bursary, I met Nkuli Bukhupa, who's now currently the COO of the Brawl Property Group. And for me, it was comforting to realize that, okay, there's somebody that looks and sounds like me in this room that is doing well in the property industry. I'm not a unicorn. It's possible for me to do well. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that knowing about other women that are doing well is critical, because it gives you the comfort and the confidence to know that, okay, it's not impossible. It's very doable. You just need to figure out how they did what they did and then do that. One of my other favorite leaders currently is Lusanda Nechi Tenze. She is the CEO of Tough 21, which is a phenomenal organization that helps people, ordinary South Africans like you and I, invest in property on a larger scale, not just your home, but you know, one of the schemes that they do, for example, is the Mastandi scheme, where they're helping people in townships build back rooms and even build full-scale developments for people in the townships to live in the townships. Because as somebody that has family, and you know, my father lives in Mamelodi, it's one of the places that are like, you know, very close to my heart. It's one of those places where I feel like townships don't really get enough of a I want to say enough limelight when it comes to creating sustainable housing and creating sustainable business for people. And Tough creates space for people to do that. Love what they do. Some other favorites of mine are Bronwyn Knight, who is the CEO of the Grit Real Estate Group, as well as Nonhlanhla Maisela, who is the CEO of the Izandla Property Group and the chair of the Women's Property Network, which I think is a phenomenal organization if you are a woman and wanting to participate in the property industry. Now, looking forward into the future, I think if we want to make sure that women are always ahead of the curve and ahead of the wave, or on a wave when it comes to any industry, but property in particular, I think it's important for women to look at trends and try and ensure that they educate themselves and start participating in industries that we're going to need 5, 10, 15 years from now. As you all know, property is a type of industry where you can't, I mean, unless you're buying shares on the JSE for a REIT, you can't just wake up and decide that you're going to invest in property tomorrow. There's a lot of due diligence that goes into it. It's a capital intensive industry, which means that you need a lot of money in order to participate in it sometimes. So it takes time and effort to be able to do that. So the more planning you can do ahead of time, the better for you and the better for the people around you. I believe that innovative housing solutions are definitely key to ensuring that we deal with some of the prehistoric issues that we have in our country, but also one of the things that will ensure that women are ahead when it comes to the property industry. People will always need a house forever. And if you're able to ensure that you give people affordable housing, and you're able to ensure that you give it to them quickly and efficiently, you're going to win. I love how a couple of the past few videos I've watched have been around trying to figure out how to find a solution for young professionals. When I started working, I lived with people because I couldn't afford to live by myself. So finding, inclusive housing for young professionals who generally have just started, don't necessarily have the money to buy a house or a bed or a car, but need to live close to work would be fantastic, PropTech is definitely going to be taking on the future even more. Like if I think about some of the most incredible things that I've heard about what people are doing in property, I mean, think about Airbnb. It's a property company that owns not a single property, but it's listed. It's a multi-billion rand company. Thinking about innovative building technology. So one of the things I did in my final year at university was in my final year of research in university, was speak to green building, right? Building practices are one of the biggest pollutants in the world. And so if we can figure out a way to ensure that we build in such a way that we don't, erode the environment that we need to live on for the foreseeable future, that's a plus, because banks will fund you, because you're going to be ensuring that you're saving the environment, because global warming is a very real thing. And the more we ensure that we participate meaningfully in slowing it down and stopping it and reversing it, the better we will be. One of the other industries that are definitely going to be affected by global warming is food. Africa and South Africa does a lot of farming. Farming is a lot of, or agriculture is one of the biggest contributors to our GDP. Figuring out how to ensure that we protect our food resources is something that I think is critical if we are going to be able to ensure that we continue to feed the world, because if we don't eat, we will die, but also ensuring that we are at the forefront of becoming a powerhouse. People will always need certain things, right? It's part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you own some of these key factors of production, you will ensure that you are at the cornerstone of dictating the future for people. So for me, I think I'm looking forward to seeing how people can solve for housing the food that we are growing. Is agroponics going to be the future? Is rooftop gardening going to be the future? Does everybody need to learn how to grow their own little garden in their backyard in order to be able to succeed? Are we going to have to figure out how to house thousands of kilometers of maize in order to ensure that there is maize being produced in the future? I think it's something that we need to really consider. And I look forward to seeing how people are smart about maneuvering around global warming whilst ensuring that we feed the world going forward. Now, like I spoke about, we need to ensure that we're on the next wave. I believe in ensuring that women get more than just pep talks when it comes to how to do well in the property industry. I'm fortunate enough that I have people that I can pick up the phone and ask practical, critical questions when I'm struggling with something. And that speaks to nurturing relationships. Ensure that you are finding people in the industry that are doing well, that you look up to, and you nurture those relationships. I look up to my peers in as much as I look up to people who are further ahead of me, because I have access to my peers. You know, I can pick up the phone and call my friend Queen Mazoso, who is, you know, working at Standard Bank, and say, hey friend, you know, now I need help with a funding model. You know, having access to people around you is critical. Property is the type of industry where you can't do everything by yourself. You need to be able to have relationships. It's one of those industries where you work with multiple people. So knowing multiple people and having relationships with multiple people is critical. Put up your hand and speak up. One of the reasons why I was able to be where I am in cyber is I spotted the CEO and Nkuli Buhupa one day. They were at Nedbank's offices. I said, hey, I'm Nthabiseng, you guys funded me. I haven't spoken to you guys in about 2 years. I just left and I haven't done anything for you. Please give me something that I can do for you. And that platform has exponentially changed my life when it comes to how I am seen and how I participate in the property industry. I don't think people would really know who I am and would ask me to speak if it hadn't been for cyber being able to give me the platform to transform the youth. And as a result, I'm able to access networks that I wouldn't have ordinarily been able to access because I picked up my hand and I volunteer to do everything, really. So one of my mentors told me that, and he's an old man, he's like 45. Okay, old, 45 is not old, but he's an older person. And he said to me, he is almost always the youngest person in the room when it comes to his friends. And he just sits and he listens. You know, he is around people that teach him a lot, and he always puts up his hand to volunteer to do things for them. And as a result, he's invited into spaces to learn and to grow, and it develops him as a person. And I strongly believe in that, and I'm a testimony of that. I believe in educating yourself, right? So I am currently doing level 1 of my CFA. I've been doing it for a while. But I'm not going to stop learning. I'm going to keep learning because I'm going to make sure that I get ahead of the curve, you know, similar to what Lebohang said to me when she said, you need to ensure that you educate yourself so that you are part of the next foundation, part of the next wave, right? And you need to learn to bounce back quickly. So property is tough, right? It's not a really easy space to be in sometimes. And you need to learn not to take things personally. You need to speak up for yourself, but you need to roll with the punches, you know. Failure does happen in the space and failure is expensive, but you need to know that failure will not kill you. I'm an advocate for going to the bathroom when I've had a tough day, crying a little bit and wiping my tears, going back to my desk and pushing, because I am an emotional being and life really does get tough, but I know that nothing is going to kill me. So I have no problem with getting up again and again and again and again and showing up. The last and most important thing is take care of yourself. There's no point in getting to the end of a journey or a job and being in absolute pieces. Ensure that you make sure that you take care of yourself. Whether that is exercising, eating well, spending time with friends and family, going to therapy. Ensure that you make sure that you take care of yourself so that you can show up in the spaces that you want to show up in and show up well. And yeah, that's it from me.
Wow. She came prepared. You came prepared, Nthabiseng. Thank you very much for that. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Let's get my video back. My host is going to allow me to. Yes, we are back. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was amazing. Can you see me?
I need to switch off my camera. My battery's about to die.
Oh, where's your charger? There's
somewhere
enough
in
time.
here.
You know what? Let's do this. Let's apologize to our viewers, but I'm sure they are looking forward to having this session with you, because we're about to have a fired up question and answer session, and we really want you to be comfortable. So please switch off your video and go get the charger, and then let's get rolling.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'll ask everyone to please do send through your questions on the chat box. We will be looking into those questions, and we will be asking them to Nthabiseng. She came prepared. She came really prepared to inspire us. I just love the fact that she doesn't only talk about the business side of things, business. She speaks about your mental health. She speaks about the fact that when things do get tough, you need to be, willing to take a break and then come back. And she speaks about a number of things that we're going to be discussing: your prop tech, your innovative building technologies. What are they? Why are they important as we go in the future that we're going into? Why is it important that we look into the innovative building technologies? She highlights some of the people that inspires her, and quite a number of things. I am inspired, and I know that you guys are inspired. And as we have this Q&A session right now, and I see she's back, we are definitely going to learn quite a lot. This is the 2021 season finale of the Rale Mampeule Learnership Masterclass, and we are about to enter into a very informative session. Send through your questions on the chat box, and make sure that you also get ready for a actual verbal conversation that you can have with Nthabiseng. We will be allowing that as well for people to join the call, ask their question to Nthabiseng. Nthabiseng, are you back fully?
Yes, I'm back.
Perfect. That's great. And there's a poll that is running. Please do people answer the poll questions. So Nthabiseng, let's get to the most important part of our conversation. Let's go to your firstly your so you spoke about things like market analysis in part of the things that you do. So we'll start with the things that you do, your everyday life at work, the things that you do. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. So market analysis, the people, we often hear that property is an investment. If you buy property, just buy property. If people that are maybe in sports, you are a sports person, and you ask for a financial advice, or someone to ask, hey, if I make money, I'm a whatever that I am, where can I put my money? Property. But nobody actually goes into the actual details of what are the things that you need to do before you get into the property space, and the things you need to do as you get in. And part of those things is market analysis. Please take us through what is the importance of market analysis from the point of view of what you do, and also in general for those that just wish to know the importance of market analysis in property.
Sure. So market analysis from the perspective of what I do is essentially ensuring that I understand the different factors that affect the market in which I operate, right? The macro and microeconomic factors, political factors, technological factors, anything that has to do with the effect of my investment, I need to understand. So in student accommodation, for example, is understanding, where my anchor institution is located, how far is it from my residence, how is the university doing, how many students does the university have, how many of those students actually need accommodation. Not every student that goes to a university needs a place to stay or needs student accommodation, So it's understanding who are my targets. It's understanding, currently with COVID, how are my students getting to and from a certain place? How are universities' policies working when it comes to their structures? Are students on campus? Are they not on campus? How does this affect my asset? the question is, how does everything that is external affect my asset? From a practical, just general perspective, when I think about just general accommodation, it's I can't just assume that because I'm using property, that property is an asset, right? Some properties are not assets. Some properties are liabilities. Some properties are badly located, they are dilapidated, they cannot be fixed. They must just be crushed and started again. So market analysis would be understanding, okay, is this asset located close enough to the person that I want to use the asset, whether they're going to stay in the asset or whether they're going to work in the asset, whatever that case may be. Is this asset, viable? Am I going to make money from it? I learned the hard way that not all residential properties are income producing, right? Yeah. But it's fine because I now know, so I can share that information. So don't do what I did. But not all properties are income producing. Having a proper understanding of the costs that you will experience when you buy, manage, and own property is critical, because it's the line between whether your property is an asset or not.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. That's absolutely true, because it's really one of the things that is affecting a lot of people. They just think, as soon as I can qualify for a property, I just need to buy a property, and no calculations are done. And I'm glad you speak here about some reporting and operational financial performance of a portfolio. People just think you need to just get into the property, whatever needs to be done, they don't do it. But I want to tap into what you were speaking about now, the student accommodation, which is mostly what you specialize in, student accommodation. That's correct. How has it been with COVID having been part of the equation in the country since COVID-19 hits? How is that industry? Can people still consider that as a viable industry to tap into?
Absolutely. Student accommodation has been very resilient, and what you will see is a lot of the bigger institutional investors have started now participating in the industry more intensely, because commercial property or office space is just not as viable as it used to be. As people become resistant to returning to offices, they need to kind of figure out ways in which they can invest in different things. And student accommodation is definitely one of those assets that people are looking into. Initially it was an alternative investment, but we're seeing it coming into the forefront a little bit more as a primary asset to invest in. The asset did very well. Students still need a place to stay, and because of online learning and some of the socioeconomic factors that affect our students, such as access to the internet or generators for Wi-Fi or even running water, right? Being in a purpose-built student accommodation has been beneficial for a lot of students, and that's why a lot of people have remained in student accommodation, and why accommodation numbers have remained as high as they have, because some people's homes are not conducive to learning. You need a place that is built specifically for learning in order to be able to go there and do well and succeed. And so because of some of those factors and others, student accommodation has been absolutely resilient and has done incredibly well over the last couple of years.
Yeah. That's great. And I'm now going to go to just some of the questions from the people that have joined us today, so that we also tap into the questions that they've asked. Let's start with biggest lessons that you live by today as you navigate the sector, as a young Black woman. I would think in the property space and also in general.
I think keeping the main goal, right? Understanding what it is I'm trying to do, what it is I'm trying to achieve, and putting that hat on and pushing and persevering no matter what, right? I mentioned earlier, and I'm sure you would know as a developer in property yourself, property gets tough, right? So you can't, be knocked down and not get back up again. When I transitioned from the working world, from being a student to the working world, I found that the gap was quite, big. I didn't have many opportunities to have work experience. So I didn't know a lot of things when I joined the working world, and I had to learn quickly, and I had to put a lot of effort into it. And so it's one of the things that I still live by today, that like, I might not necessarily be the smartest person in the room, but I will work hard, and I will make sure that what I lack in whatever area of knowledge, whatever gap that I have not yet closed, I work to close it. And the next time you see me, I will know a little bit more than I did the last time. And I will ensure that I keep learning a little bit more and knowing a little bit more until I close the gap. One of the other things is picking up my hand and saying when I don't know something. I've learned that the hard way, right? It doesn't help me to try and see if I can figure it out. A 5-minute conversation with somebody who knows better than you will save you a lot of effort and pain and money.
Absolutely.
So those are my lessons. Yeah.
Yes. Taking into the topic for today, just women. Is a question also from is asking, what are the challenges that women face now in the sector? The inclusion, which is part of another follow-up question, inclusion, and what are the challenges that women are facing in the sector right now?
I think currently there is still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of ensuring that there are more women participating meaningfully in the property sector, and particularly in senior levels, right? I think we're seeing a lot of younger people, a lot of people just starting to participate in the industry, but where there is a lot of space that still needs to be filled, it's in senior executive positions, it's in higher management positions. It's, it's on the boards. If you think about all of the CEOs of all of the property companies in the country right now, it's not yet at a stage where there's a 50-50 balance between males and females. Even boards, we're not yet at a stage where there's a 50-50% balance between males and females. And I think that's something that actively needs to be worked on. It needs to be worked on from women themselves. So we need to make sure that we educate ourselves and put ourselves in a position where when the time comes and somebody calls our names, we are able to, be pulled into the room, because there's no point in crying about not being in the room, but then not being qualified to be in the room. But it also has to do with the people that are already currently in the room, right? If you cannot necessarily pull somebody in, educate them and share tips with them so that they can be ready when they get there. And people being intentional about ensuring that diversity is something they're important, they're proud of. It's a worldwide thing. It's not just a South African problem, it's a worldwide problem. And people know that where there is diversity, both from a gender perspective, but also from a race perspective, that there are better synergies because there are more people who are able to give different perspectives and therefore grow organizations. So it's for the betterment of whatever organization that you're in, for there to be diversity. So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I love the fact in the sector, for those that have minimal means, because some of the people are in, but just minimal, not fully in. The Mampeule Foundation is actually doing Mampeule leadership masterclasses to make sure that we bring new real estate, and that's what they are trying to bring people in. SIBIP is bringing people in. There are so many other organizations that are doing their best to bring people in, and as Nthabiseng says, that is very, and I'm actually moved by the Florence. I'm not sure if you can failure here on my side. I hope you can still hear me. But Florence is asking, what to a giving up, and switching to another industry altogether because they don't feel valued currently and they don't see, growth. To Florence, please.
Florence, when you get that answer, let me know. No, I'm kidding. I think it's about self-motivation. Again, going back to what I said when I said you need to know what your end goal is. Figure out what it is that you're trying to do, learn what you need to learn, where you are. And if you're not valued and you have voiced how you feel, wherever you are, move. You're not a tree, okay? Make sure that you are where you are for the right reasons. Sometimes people don't know that you don't feel valued and you need to speak up. Put your hand up, speak up, and say, look, I don't feel valued. I'd like to participate differently. I want to do better. I want to grow in certain areas. It's one of the conversations I've always had with HR professionals. They've always said that, people don't necessarily speak, they just leave. You don't say that I'm unhappy because of X, Y, and Z. So have the courage to speak up. Have the courage to educate yourself. Have the courage to speak to other people in the industry about similar situations that you have, so that maybe you can maneuver around the space differently. And if it's not working, the industry is big. Yeah. Go where you are valued, go where you are seen, go where you will be protected, go where you will be grown.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I just want to make see me and hear me, so that if my video is breaking, I can. Are you fine right now?
It is breaking a little bit.
It does break.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Let me see. Can we try this? Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Yes.
Awesome. I'd love to be visible. Goes on, we will. We'll take some more of the questions from the honor the CEO of the foundation, who is also, that is Mampeule. She is in the session as well. Just want to honor. Thank you very much for the foundation, for creating this platform for young people, property practitioners in general, or people who want to tap into the industry. As the we really appreciate these platforms, and I'm sure people are learning quite a lot. Give you a chance as well later on today to just, as this is a season finale for this year's, version of the, will be getting a vote of thanks from you. For now, it's just to allow you to just have your greetings to the people who are in attendance, and just be honored as the person who has joined us today. As that's the CEO of the Mampeule Foundation, guys. Hello, Ms. Mampeule, Mrs. Mampeule. Thank you. All right, we'll give her a time later on today to just address us and the people. Let's move on to some of the questions again, Nthabiseng.
Sure.
There's a critical question. I want to go straight to it. They want the how, the space, the all that we have been speaking about, things, the mental health being important, and people stepping into it and staying in it because they can. Nthabiseng, I don't know if this is the actual name, but Nthabiseng, more interested in the how part, how to grow the property industry. As an example, from being a Mastandi Ekasi to getting funding and developing student accommodation. How can they go about get to the industry, especially accommodation, as that is the one I'm referencing here?
So my biggest advice is partnership, relationships, and education, right? Partnerships, because you need to partner with people who are further ahead than you, and people that are doing what you want to participate in and do, right? If you don't necessarily have the skill of building a student accommodation, but you have the skill of building in Umastandi, then find somebody that you can partner with that has that experience. And when you go to a funder, you show them that you both have added experience. So one of the weirdest things I found was people actually add up their experience and count it as like 30 years experience, for example. So if it was me and I had 6 friends and we each had 5 years of working experience, we put together a little company profile brief and we'll say we have 30 years of working experience. Collectively, we do actually. If 6 of my friends come together, we work in different environments, but we have a common goal and all of our skills match up to be able to pursue the goal that we're trying to reach right now. That's 30 years worth of experience. So definitely partner with people that are further ahead or in different areas or the area that you want to pursue. I think that's a great way of doing it, because I think banks or funders in general trust people that have experience. And if you don't have experience, find somebody that does and learn from that person and move on to doing bigger and better things with that person.
Awesome. Now, on the how part, still sticking to that, people want to tap into the real estate space, young people. And women are actually the most, people that are, there's a study that was done. I'm sure people can go read up on that. I can't get the link right now, but there's a study that says that are buying property. On the how part of getting into real estate, can we just go through the steps and processes goes into buying probably a first property? What would a young person have to do?
So I'm glad that we've kind of circled back and kind of made it smaller so that we know that we're talking particularly about residential property, because property is huge. So there's different strategies for different asset classes. But for resi, I think affordability is probably the biggest thing, right? I know there are different schools of thought, but mine is that don't go for the maximum that the bank is willing to give you, right? Just because the bank said you can afford 3 million rands doesn't mean that you should spend 3 million rands on your first property or your home or whatever the case may be. Interest rates fluctuate drastically sometimes. And we are in uncharted waters as a country currently when it comes to our interest rates as well. So being able to comfortably afford a home is critical. Finding a good location is critical. I actually bumped into a friend yesterday, and him and his partner have just moved from where they are because they needed to be able to be close enough to a good school for their kids. Some schools only take children from certain areas into their roster of students. So understand what your needs are and buy property for those needs. If you need a 2-bedroom apartment, that's what you need. You don't have to get a 7-bedroom apartment if you don't need it, because I think that speaks to affordability, that speaks to location, and that speaks to investing wisely. If you are in a 2-bedroom apartment because you only need 2 rooms, if you can afford another 5 rooms, maybe you can take that money and invest it in property, an income producing property, for example. So always be strategic about why it is that you're investing in property, what you're financing, because just because you can afford something doesn't mean that you should buy it, and figure out why you need that property. What's the purpose? What are you trying to do? Is this a short-term thing? Is it a long-term thing? And then invest accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Quite a lot of questions. People really want to engage. I will to facilitate inviting people for an audio or video questions, so that this is more interactive. Okay, so Nitotenda his question has been answered. He was asking what knowledge does one need to know and have before buying the first property. I have another question from Vuyo. So Vuyo has 2 questions. Let's start with the first one. Yourself or third-party company?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. I can actually
Alright.
just look on the side and see if I
Awesome.
can find this question, or you
So
can
he
read it
said,
again.
how do you conduct your market research? Do you do it yourself or a third-party company? And where do you think the sweet spot is?
So presently I do the market research alongside with my business development manager and other people in the business. It's an in-house expertise that we have established in the business. But other people do it externally. And I think that also works. So the likes of JLL and the South African Development Bank also do quite a lot of research. I think it's important to have in-house expertise if you're investing in a certain sector. I don't advise people not to know the ins and outs of the industry that they are participating in, particularly in property. But at the same time, having outside views and opinions is critical as well, because people will see things that you don't see. People will see risks that you don't see, because sometimes you have a bias with your own asset. So yeah, I think that's absolutely critical as well.
Awesome.
So it's definitely a balance between the two for me.
Yeah. Yeah, you speak about risk and all that. And I saw in your presentation, you were speaking about, is it bond origination or debt origination? Is it one or both? Which one do you guys do? Debt origination?
I think debt origination is where it's at.
Okay, all right. So you guys don't do bond?
There'll always be a bond registered over a property. Yeah. So that's always something the bank will want registered over any asset that you are using as the underlying asset when you are borrowing money from the bank.
All right, perfect. All right, let's to the motivation now, because the people really want you to be sharing a lot of motivation for them. Ntutugo is asking, as a young Black successful, as a young successful Black woman in the industry, what would you say has set you apart and helped you achieve the level of success that you've achieved?
I'm hungry. I don't want to lie. I don't want to be mediocre. I've never wanted to be mediocre. I'd rather work hard and stumble and choke on like something big than play small. I think one of the things that my CEO, Vuyisa Muchagwani from Cybeb, has said about women in general is that women tend to be a little bit too modest. And it's something I'm unlearning. I'm trying to unlearn not being able to put up my hand and say, I am good at X, Y, and Z, and you should pay me X, Y, and Z to do that. I think I'm learning to speak up about my worth and my value and what I know. And I think it's helping. I think it's making me happier, because I don't have any reservations about who I am and what I bring to the table. But I think it also provides confidence for the person sitting across the room who's talking to me about what I do.
Awesome. And about innovative building. And I'm interested in picking your brain about the future of property with things like, prop tech, like, innovative building technologies. Where do you see the industry going right now from where we are? And what is the importance of the innovative building technologies?
I love that question. And I know that you're one of the judges for the Foundation's competition.
Yes.
On innovative and sustainable building practices, which is something I think everybody needs to be participating in more meaningfully. I'd love to see South Africans figuring out how to build using less water and using less electricity, but particularly less water. I think electricity more for the functionality, because we don't necessarily have a reliable power source at the moment. So figuring out how to power electricity that is green, so that having portable power sources, not just a generator, but portable green power sources for developments, I think would be key. And whoever comes up with that solution is going to make a ton of money. But also figuring out how to build using less water. Water is such a scarce resource in this country. And as global warming continues to hit us and, you know, temperatures continue to rise, we may not always have sources of water readily available. And so figuring out how to build with less water is going to be critical, because also I think building does do a lot of contamination to water as well. So figuring out how not to use drinkable water for construction, I think will be key. I'd love to see somebody come up with those solutions.
No, absolutely. I'm very, very passionate about that space as well. I think it's a space that, you know, as we transition into the future, we are going to have things like prop tech, the building technologies, a lot of those things where people can actually build, got, you know, a whole property, you know, done. So we really would like to see how the industry is going to evolve going forward. So we are at around 30:30, but in the meantime, what we're going to do is to welcome the CEO of Mrs. Mampeule, who will also be joining us in the session. I know she's also investing in property some time ago. So if she's got enough time, she can just give us a hint of how she is navigating the property space, because we know that she's one of the women that we are speaking about today that are just in the property space. Welcome to the session.
Good afternoon, Lindo, and good afternoon to all the participants who have joined us today. As Lindo has mentioned, my name is Mampeule. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Mampeule Foundation. Thank you, Nthabiseng, for sharing your time, your knowledge today and being our masterclass guest speaker. We really do appreciate it. Welcome to everyone. I see today, according to the stats, that we have 81% of the participants today. Get to see you again in 2022 as we continue to have these masterclasses. My laptop is telling me my network is not so good. Can everyone hear me? Lindo?
Yes, we can. I lost you a little bit, but you are back on now.
Okay.
Yeah,
you know, this technology can be jealous.
We can hear you. I wonder what it is today, but we're here. Nthabiseng can hear both of us. Can you, Nthabiseng?
Nthabiseng, can you hear me?
She's just on mute.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. Sure, Linda, I think it was what the other masterclass where they spoke about property investment, and I shared my little experience with it. I'm one of those who I think have experienced the best and the worst of it, which I also think it's vital that, as much as, you know, Lindo, you were saying that people would say, what can I invest in? And they say property, and they just make it so simple, like, oh, it's just a matter of buying a unit and then you're going to make money out of it. Sometimes you do, and there's that sad reality that sometimes you don't. So I think in 2006, if I'm not mistaken, I was fortunate enough to be able to buy 4 properties at the same time. That's when the banks were not too clever, in Nthabiseng, but now they have caught up with people like myself. So what I had done was I bought 4 properties with the 4 major banks. So I applied at the same time and they all approved me. And just like that, I was an investor of 4 properties. It was a new development. By the time it was up, I think I had made about 75,000 rand per unit. And I thought, oh, that is great. I'm going to do this again. I did it. Didn't make so much money, But, you know, that's when we were hitting the 2008 recession. So it was not a good time for most people. And then I saw a new development and I thought, oh, this one is great. I'm going to take this one. I did not factor in the levies.
Jeez.
So, and that's when I got hit, because as much as the unit could afford paying the bank itself, it did not afford the levies. So now I was spending, I think, close to about 10,000 rand for the 3 units. And that coming out of my pocket was a lot. And it did not amount to an asset anymore for me at the time. And I thought, okay, no, let me let these ones go. And then I was hit again because the value of the properties did not appreciate that much. And I was left with having to pay shortfalls on 2 of the properties that I had bought. So this is just me sharing that there are good times, there are bad times, but like Nthabiseng has said, if you know why you're doing what you're doing, you can either give up from that step, or now that you know where you lose money and where you make money, it helps you to know where to focus on. Am I still much of a property investor? No. But now I have become, I invest in humans more. And that is why I am running the foundation with my husband. There's something that you, Nthabiseng, said about, you know, one of the suburb people were passing while you were at Nedbank, and you were like, oh, guys, this is what you did for me. What can I do back? And for me to hear that, it's also a motivation to say, keep doing what we are doing as a foundation, because we are making a difference. For me, the big thing about giving is that I teach somebody to pay forward. And imagine if all of us give back what we have been given. This world, or even this country, would have less people suffering, less people standing on the side of anything, you know, begging, because even if there is that person on the side of whatever, your heart will know that somebody had made a difference for you, and you will also want to pay forward to that person. So I really do believe in giving back. And, you know, everybody on the platform, giving back is not about money. You can give back in service. So yeah, let's continue being a nation that is really giving, especially in this festive time as well. For some of us, we look forward to it. We're gonna go home and have lunch with our families. For some people, this Christmas is probably going to be harder, because some parents have lost their work, they've lost their income because of the pandemic. There are children who are now not going to have parents to share this Christmas with. So let's try and remember those people, you know. Like I said, it's not about pouring out a lot. You could literally ask 20 rand from all your close contacts, and, you know, you buy a couple of things from the grocery and just share with those people. There was, I think it was Maleshane Makgabo who said, thanks to Nthabiseng for speaking your truth. I actually love that on your presentation, you mentioned that we really need to take care of ourselves, you know, especially when the hardships come, because when people see a person who is successful, they just think you wake up and you just do this every day like an oiled machine, not knowing that there are moments when you really need to scream. And I like that you encourage people to do that. I also like that you encourage that as women, it's okay for us to be emotional, but it does not mean we can't perform at our best. You know, we need to be authentic to to ourselves, to our species, and to the way that we are built, but that should never ever be an excuse to why we can't do better. We are very much capable, and you are a living testament to that. So thank you for sharing that with a lot of people. I know the likes of Udu too would really appreciate who's somewhere, who's also a participant here, hearing that, you know. So thank you very much. And I think that you also touched on was ABTs, alternative building technologies, for those who don't know what the abbreviation is. So on the 4th of October was the UN World Habitat Day. So in most countries, it hasn't hit the wave yet in Africa, like our other counterparts. Alternative building technologies has become very big. You know, how the environment and the world is affected by a lot of things. It's not just cars, homes also do play a big contributor to that. And they did encourage that we start building smart, we start building green, and you did mention that. And Nthabiseng is also one of the judges who will be judging a competition that we have within the foundation, with a very lovely prize of 50,000 Rand. So after the presentation, please go to our website, the mampeulefoundation.org, and look into it. My team can do let me know that I think the closing date was on the 15th. So please do look at it and see how you can participate, and you might just be a winner in the next masterclass, and we announce you and share what you have contributed towards this very great initiative that we have in the world and within our foundation. So yeah, thank you very much, Nthabiseng. Thank you, Lindo, and thank you to the team behind this masterclass.
Yeah, it's a big one. Thank you very much for those kind words. Thank you very much for the messages to Nthabiseng. I think I agree with you. She was quite amazing, you know, with her presentation and also everything that she has managed to share today. It was quite good, and we really appreciate her expert, you know, advice that she shared today. I actually wanted to, I know she will get time to respond to what you were saying, but in conjunction with that, can I ask you, Nthabiseng, there's a question that came actually in what Mrs. Mampeule was speaking about properties, you know, lose and whatnot. We had a question from Kutso. That's the last one. That's the last one. From Kutso, Kutso was saying, given the exponential rise in properties, that's overpricing in brackets, for residential properties in the United States, and the concurrent collapse of the housing market in China. And he asked, and how should we expect the event economies to affect our local property market?
I want to see if I can find that question, because I lost you when you said, are we? So are we in a housing market bubble, and how should we expect the events taking place in the two largest economies to affect our local property sector? Look, I can't say whether we are in a housing bubble or not. That's not my area of expertise. So again, you must put up your hand if you don't know something, because I don't want to lie to people and say, I know. I'll have to find out, and maybe I can respond to that later. What I can say is those two economies sneeze and we all feel it. So we should be very careful to look at how the MPC is going to be speaking to interest rates, and how they are going to be increasing or staying consistent or decreasing as the Reserve Bank tries to manage inflation in the country, because there is a target in which it must be kept. And in order to manage that target, interest rates are increased and decreased. And we all know that, you know, depending on how those two large economies behave, it affects our rand, which then has ripple effects in other parts of our economy as well. So, so far, property prices have been holding and have been increasing in certain areas. Whether that is as a result of demand or whether as a result of, you know, a bubble, I'm not too sure of. I think people are definitely demanding properties, bigger properties, different properties because of the pandemic and other reasons, including favorable lending rates right now. So yeah, we'll have to look and see. And I'll definitely go back, do a little bit more research and come back with a better answer when it comes to whether we're in a bubble or not. Just before I really would like to thank the foundation and Mackenzie for putting this whole organization together, for putting the foundation together, for educating people about property, and for giving, you know, young people like you and I the opportunity to speak our truth and to share our journeys with other people. Thank you so, so much. And please continue to do what you're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love what you do. I love you. I love everything that you stand for. I think you've shared your truth, you've shared wisdom, you've shared everything that people would love to hear. And that brings us to the end of today's session. And today, as we had stated, this is the 2021 season finale of the Rally Mampeule Learnership Property Masterclass. We do these things so that we can bring out people who have knowledge about real estate in all its industries, because the real estate sector on its own has a lot of industries, and we just bring out different people that come here and share what they know, share knowledge, share wisdom, share inspiration, and you know, end the year with some powerful message from a powerful young lioness. We got some wisdom, not only on the sector itself, but also on our mental health. The fact that whatever you do, just never allow it to consume you in a way that you lose yourself in the process. So we really, really appreciate Nthabiseng for what she has done for us today, as you know, the Rally Mampeule Property Masterclass. I would love to bring in Ujwiko, who works in the foundation, who's the one who's going to be closing for us. But also I would love Ujwiko to allow Nthabiseng to tell people where they can contact her, because with the lots of questions that we've received, a lot of people would love to continue the conversation with her on the side. I know she does a couple of so maybe she can get a chance to also tell people where they can get hold of her podcasts, where they can get hold of her, follow her on social media platforms where she always just share wisdom. And from me, it's always thank you very much, guys, for allowing me to host these masterclasses. I hope and believe that we will do this thing again in 2022, 2023, and forever. It's going to be fun. We are all going to learn property together. We are going to grow together and ensure that we assist the chairman of the foundation, Mr. Rally Mampeule, in bringing new blood into the old vein of real estate. We are one of the new bloods, and we are very much appreciative of what the platforms he has opened for us over the years. So from me to the foundation is thank you very much for always be by my side at all times. I don't take this for granted. I will continue to appreciate the platforms and everything that you do for others, because what you do for me is just for one person, but what we are able to do for others is just amazing, and it will always multiply and multiply. So thank you very much. My name is Lindo. I appreciate you guys. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Lindo. Thank you to Nthabiseng, Mackenzie as well, for participating and sharing these really great messages about women in the real estate sector. As Mackenzie was saying, our CEO, she was sharing that we have a prize for World Habitat Day competition that the Mampeule Foundation is actually running. And the winner gets up to 50,000, well, actually will get 50,000 Rand, and their solution will actually be built. So we encourage those who are under the age of 27 So it's actually really targeted at students. If you are a student at a tertiary institution, we encourage you to enter this competition. Go to mampeulefoundation.org and you'll have more details about what it is. But you can win up to 50,000 Rand and your solution will be built. So this competition will be closing on the 15th. So please make sure to join and to share with others if they're in the criteria, if they meet the criteria to join. You can be a lay person, but we do ask for some information about what alternative building technology you would bring to the market if you had a chance, and we're giving you that opportunity. So please do join us. We just want to say thank you very much to Lindo once again. It's actually Lindo's 1-year anniversary since he started hosting this masterclass for us. So really, really do appreciate everything that you've done for us, Lindo. In the new year, we have an exciting lineup that we're already working on. But the other thing that I do want to announce, actually, there are 2 other things I want to announce. We will be sharing something in the new year. We receive a lot of questions, and the founder of the foundation, Rali Mampeule, he also gets a lot of queries about people who really want to get mentorship directly from him. So we're going to start a cohort where people can actually apply from January the 1st. They'll be able to apply. It'll be closing by the 31st of January. So it's just the month of January where you can apply. And that group of people will have an opportunity to learn a little bit more from Rali. We can't open it up to everyone, unfortunately, but we're going to be selecting about 10 or 15 people who are in the property space. You need to have some experience in the property space, and then you'll be mentored through property opportunities by Rali himself. So look forward to that. From the 1st of January to the 31st of January, it will be open for you to apply. And the final thing that I wanted to share with you is we have a winner of people who have RSVP'd and also who asked questions. So we have a winner for this year, for this time. Let me just look for their name again. And it's Sinao Madaza, who asked quite a few questions to Nthabiseng, and Sinao will be in contact with you to actually get you so that you have a one-on-one 30-minute call with Rali Mampeule just to learn a little bit more from him and to share your interest in the property sector. So from the Mampeule Foundation, we wish you all a happy new year and a happy Christmas. We ask you to stay healthy during this difficult time, but we look forward to seeing you in 2022. Thank you.